You know, the thing that I love about the book is it informs you to who these folks are, but I think only you could have written this book. I'm not talking about just the ability to write, but for instance, I could have never written this book because it would just be denounced as one more bitter outsider who left. And I would like to ask you now, how, in the best of all possible worlds, I know this is going to sound crazy, but could the kingdom, the power, and the glory read by enough evangelicals be the beginning of what would amount to the next great awakening in this country in terms of the evangelical community itself? Because nothing would do this country more good than to have Christians rediscover their Christianity. I know that's a huge, crazy question, but I'm going to go there.
Well, I I follow a figure who, fed the 5,000 with just a few fish and a
Mm.
few loaves. And I believe in a God who, made the heavens and the earth, and who uh, can do more than my mind is capable of imagining. So I think I would just answer your question by saying that to the extent I can play any role whatsoever in pointing a movement back to Jesus, and in reclaiming that which is beautiful and true and right about Christianity, then that's my prayer. That's my prayer. And I think what you're seeing is, and this reaches far beyond the pages of my book. I think you are seeing now, and I write about this a bit at the end, Frank. These younger generations, I call them at one point, being a little bit cheeky almost, I call them the children of the moral majority.
Mm.
And I consider myself as such. That was my dad's, that was his habitat, that was his ecosystem that he grew up in as a believer, as a convert who then went to seminary, left behind his banking career, and launched a career in the ministry. He, I don't think, was in a position necessarily to question this fusing of social, cultural, political identity with faith identity. And they merged in a way that was effortless and easy. And I think now, as we look back on it, my generation, and certainly the generations behind me, we can see this for what it was. We can understand the mistakes that were made, and we can correct them, and we can try with humility and grace and respect and love to reach out to our parents and to others who may have lost the plot a little bit here, may have strayed from the path,
Mm.
and bring them back, and do it in a way that is additive to the church. I've had people allege, the same things that they accused you of being bitter, of trying to cash in, of dividing the church for, personal gain. There's first of all, to your point, I mean, I know people who have published. I write about one person in particular in the book who's published a whole series of books about God and Donald Trump, and the sort of prophetic window into which
Mhm.
Trump is God's instrument for America's divine reckoning, or salvation.
Mm.
Um, those books would sell me a heck of a lot more than this one.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to cash out and sell my soul, I could certainly do so. I have no expectation of playing any sort of a leading role in a movement here, Frank. I'm a journalist. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a uh, particularly eloquent individual, but I do know that when I was raised to know right from wrong,
Mm.
and to recognize Christ as the moral standard by which I was to measure everything around me in life, I know that those teachings are not relative. I know that they're not malleable. I know that they don't come and go and ebb and flow. I mean, part of my own criticisms of Donald Trump in my first book and to this day have almost nothing to do with journalistic analysis, but rather with the basic notions of character and ethics and morality that I was taught in the church. So I think in some sense, the irony here, as one of the characters in the book puts it, his name is Nick Olson. He's become a dear friend of mine, and he's currently, as of this recording, he is still employed at Liberty University, although we suspect that that could change because of his decision to go on the record with me in the book. But Nick's father was a contemporary of Jerry Falwell Sr.'s, and Nick grew up in the Liberty family, and he cares about the place deeply, but he's now decided to go public with his long festering criticisms of Liberty, and he gives voice to it in a quote that I found to be incredibly insightful. He said to me in the book, he said, "We challenge our upbringing with the things we learned in our upbringing." And
I actually underlined that in the book.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel. You know, it's that's exactly, so we are not deviating from the church. We are not bitter. We are attempting to say, hey, remember this, back over here. Like, let's come back to the basics, and let's try to keep the main thing once again. And that sounds like it's a big lofty goal, Frank, but it shouldn't be that big and lofty. I mean, it's right there. It's right there in front of us.